Hi everybody, this is Brian Koo with another ROK video, and today I want to discuss the differences between playing in an A kingdom and playing in an Imperium kingdom. And this video is a bit of a response to a video that 68 busdriver made recently, where he spoke about when young accounts are ready to move up to the Imperium level. And as I watched that video, it did occur to me that Bus was leaving out a middle ground step between being a young account just entering Season of Conquest and going all the way to being an Imperium level player. And that middle ground is simply to join a non-Imperium kingdom. And, you know, that could be a C or D kingdom if you wanted it to be, although most C and D kingdoms are quite casual and, you know, just not the sort of... That's not the audience that I'm intending this video for. I'm intending this video for a relatively serious Rise of Kingdoms player who is developing their account and wants to play at a level that is comfortable for them, but also competitive and a place where they can, you know, have a lot of interesting adventures in this game. And to me, that middle ground, that stepping stone to the Imperium level, is an A kingdom like my kingdom 770, or even a smaller kingdom, you know, a B kingdom that's kind of competitive, a B kingdom that has a good number of stars. That's also, you know, a very good middle ground point for people who take the game seriously but maybe don't necessarily want to play at a Imperium level. And so let me talk about some of the differences between playing in an A kingdom and playing in an Imperium kingdom. And the first one is what I've been alluding to so far, which is that an A kingdom is not as serious as an Imperium kingdom. Inevitably, Imperium kingdoms have people who are spending more money than those of us in an A kingdom. And inevitably, you just have more players there who really want to play at the most competitive level. They expect to win most of their KVKs. And, you know, the kingdoms, many of the Imperium kingdoms were designed when they first started to be these dominant kingdoms where they had more players, they had more alliances, and they had more spenders. And therefore, those advantages would lead them to winning more KVKs than they lose, and in many cases, dominating the KVKs that they're in. I think A kingdoms in general have developed differently. A kingdom like our 770, we've just sort of gradually moved up the ranks over the years. We didn't, you know, have this big recruiting boom where we brought in a bunch of players at once. We've just had success and slowly gotten bigger or slowly inched closer to Imperium. And while we do have some spenders in our kingdom, it's not, it's nowhere near the level of spenders you have in Imperium kingdoms. And so I think the pressure is just lower in a kingdom like this. The expectations for how much contribution you do per KVK is lower, and the pressure to win is also a bit lower here. I think a lot of A kingdoms in this game have shown more longevity, actually, than Imperium kingdoms. And I think the reason that A kingdoms are able to have longevity is because 1 or 2 KVK losses tend to not destroy the kingdom. Because we're a little bit less serious, we can handle those losses and keep chugging along. And so for you as a player, there's just less pressure on you. The voice chats are less serious. The penalties for missing your contribution in 1 KVK are probably a little bit less harsh. And it's just generally a slightly more casual environment than an Imperium kingdom is. Now, another difference in an A kingdom is that you can get by with using fewer marches. So there are a lot of people in this game who don't yet have 5 marches to field. They either don't have the commanders for those marches, and or they don't have the equipment for those marches. Or in some cases, they don't even have the troops, right? Like a lot of people, including myself, once we go a little bit deep into a KVK, we start to take some deads, and all of a sudden we don't have enough troops to field all 5 marches when we're using, you know, a 50% capacity boost and using all the crystal tech that boost troop capacity. So in an A kingdom, you can get away with only running 2 or 3 marches a lot of the time. Because our contribution requirements are lower, you don't have to use 5 marches all the time in order to meet the contribution requirements for a KVK. And because in general, our armies are a little bit smaller, our armies have fewer marches in them than an Imperium army does, we're a little bit more accepting of players who are only using 2 to 3 marches. You know, we don't sort of like look down on those players or think of them as being not valuable. You know, we have plenty of players in our kingdom who just run maybe 3 or so marches. They control their marches pretty well, and they hit respectable contribution requirements every KVK. They might not hit the 30 million kill point quest, or 30 million kills quest in Lost Kingdom, but they might hit, you know, 15 to 20 million kills. And, you know, that's not going to really cut it in an Imperium Kingdom, but in an A Kingdom where you're running about 2 or 3 marches, you'll do just fine. Now, another difference between Imperiums and A Kingdoms is that we face a wider variety of competition in the Lost Kingdoms that we enter. There are some times where we will fight against Imperium Kingdoms or very strong A Kingdoms that have tons of whales. I've fought against Arvix in my life. I have fought against Chisgul and Fluffy Pony and Peacemaker in my life. But I have also fought against very casual A and B kingdoms where, you know, they just have a bunch of farmers in the kingdoms and maybe they'll fight for a day or 2 after the pass is open, but they're basically just like a casual kingdom for people to play the game at a totally different speed than, you know, us fighter types do. And you really do get a complete mix of competition at this A Kingdom level. You know, some of the best leaders in the game that I've fought against are at the A Kingdom level. There was a Kingdom 2064 that has a Russian leader named Decebalus, and the discipline that team showed, the ball movement that team showed was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. We learned a lot from fighting against 2064, and I really felt like they were the most organized group that we had ever played against. And you would just never really encounter a group like that in an Imperium Kingdom because they're a low-spending Russian kingdom that really has no hope to compete at the Imperium level and would never even attract enough players to compete at the Imperium level. But they're still very strong and very competitive and successful at the A Kingdom level because, you know, like I said, they also face a variety of opponents. They don't face a bunch of whales every single KVK. Sometimes they face kingdoms just like theirs, low-spending, serious kingdoms. Now, another difference between A Kingdoms and Imperiums is that in A Kingdoms, you actually get more rewards from events. So in the Mightiest Governor, you're more likely to place highly. In the 20 head events, like the like Game of Power or Race Against Time or Protect the Supplies or any of those events, you have a better chance of winning them in an A Kingdom. And also in something like Zenith of Power, you have a better chance of finishing in the top 10 in Zenith of Power due to the fact that, at least in your kingdom and potentially on your continent, you're not dealing with any Imperium level competition where inevitably there are a bunch of whales. Now, on the other hand, you can certainly get more rewards from a gold chest perspective in Imperium kingdoms. And I think it is certainly the case that a lot of people go to Imperium kingdoms because they want to get all those gold chests. You know, I'm a VIP 17 account in this game, and I've been playing for 5.5 years. I'll probably hit VIP 18 in the next 6 months or so, so right around the 6-year mark of playing this game. If I had been in a big Imperium kingdom all this time, I probably would have hit VIP 18 after maybe 3 or 4 years of play. It would have significantly sped up how quickly I accumulate VIP points. I would also do better in terms of speed ups and gold keys and everything else that you get from gold chests these days. And so, the gold chest advantage you get from playing in an Imperium Kingdom, that cannot be discounted. That's a very big benefit of playing in Imperium Kingdoms, and I certainly understand why a lot of people go to Imperiums for that reason. Now, the fifth and final difference that I will talk about from the A Kingdom level to the Imperium level is that I do think you tend to get more coaching at the A Kingdom level. And I think that's for a few reasons. Number one, because we're a little bit less serious, we understand that sometimes we're going to recruit players who are pretty young, who still have a lot to learn about the game. And because we struggle to recruit compared to the Imperium Kingdoms do, we're willing to take those players in. We're willing to take those works in progress in and coach them up and develop them into really quality players. I also think it's the case that, as I said, A Kingdoms simply have developed differently over the years than Imperium Kingdoms have developed. Imperium Kingdoms tend to be very, very good at recruiting, and what tends to happen is they recruit a small group of whales to that kingdom, and then those whales are a magnet for lots more players to join that kingdom. And so these successful Imperium Kingdoms, they tend to have some sort of time period, maybe almost like a 2 to 6 month time period where they do an absolute ton of recruiting. They're very successful at recruiting, and they go from a fairly small kingdom, maybe an A seed kingdom, to being, one of the biggest 15 or so kingdoms in the game because they had this incredible recruiting boom. And so the leaders of Imperium Kingdoms tend to be very, very good recruiters. They tend to be good at managing their personnel, managing the egos of the players that they have, and they've become successful over the years by, being good recruiters who are constantly able to refresh their lineups. But I think with the A Kingdom leadership teams, quite frankly, a lot of us aren't very good at recruiting. That Russian kingdom that I mentioned before, they really haven't grown over the years despite having 6 or 7 stars at this point. Because, what do you expect some low-spending Russian guy to be good at recruiting players, right? And even here in 1770, we've never been all that successful at recruiting. Our biggest recruiting victories have been from bringing in groups of people who we played with in KVK. In one case, we brought in a group that we fought against in KVK, and in another case, we brought in a group that we allied with as campmates in KVK. And so, we just have like a different skill set than these, recruiting heavy Imperium leadership teams. We're pretty good at strategy. We're pretty good at coaching players up. And we're good at just essentially getting the best out of the player base that we have, the very diverse player base we have, where we have everything from quite casual players to big spending, super skilled players. It runs the gamut here in an A Kingdom, and so we do tend to coach players more. We tend to, if you come to a kingdom like ours, it's 770, you will learn how to play the game better, and you'll have the opportunity to, sit on voice chat during war and just ask questions to people, right? Because there are times in our kingdom where the voice chat is pretty quiet. There might only be 4 or 5 people on there. Nobody's really saying too much. And, if you get the right group of players on there and you start asking them questions, you're probably going to get some of the best coaching and the best information that you could possibly get for free anywhere in Rise of Kingdoms. Whereas I think in an Imperium Kingdom, because it's so much bigger, there's so much going on, it's such a serious place, I don't think the leadership there necessarily has as much time or as much energy to put into coaching compared to the time and energy that we have here in an A Kingdom. So I hope I've given you some food for thought about the differences between playing at the Imperium level and playing at the A Kingdom level. There are benefits to both. But, you know, for me personally, I sort of like the more casual life here in an A Kingdom. For me, the pressure of being in an Imperium would just be a little bit too high, right? Like, this game is a very hardcore, serious game, but there's also a part of this game that's actually, like, really chill. You live in this quiet, green, lush home kingdom. You live with another group of players who are just also living there and trying to, like, progress their accounts and build back up for the next war. So there is like a whole, and there's all these like PvE events that you can do in the game. There is like a whole casual side to this game. We all engage in the casual side to the game, and so I just enjoy sometimes embracing that aspect of it. Maybe having some easy wars from time to time, getting the easy win, never being under pressure over the course of a Lost Kingdom. I like the mix of both. And so for me, the A Kingdom life is kind of where it's at. For others, I can certainly understand why the bleeding edge competitive play of the Imperium lifestyle is more their speed. So it's different strokes for different folks, and I hope everybody out there finds the right fit for them. If you like this video, please throw a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all on the flip side.